Welcome, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Saturday, June 14th, 2025. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? Can I please have the first two cards in our 5-card spread? Ooh, we've got our Page of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Two of Pentacles in its upright. How do I describe this? So I think that one of the things that we see that's happening right now is there's something really, I want to describe, like things are either, and this is why, remember how, okay, how do I describe this best? So you will recall how I mentioned before we started, I'm going to bring up what I was talking about before we started the podcast, which is we've entered a lot of Cancer energy very, very quickly. Now, what does that mean in relationality to Cancer energy? So we're going to start talking, and we've had a lot of Sagittarian energy as well. So the thing that we're seeing that's occurring, particularly with the Sagittarius full moon, and I personally, this is why I said that I thought that the Sagittarian full moon in Gemini season was so beautiful. Because, and I wrote a whole article about this over on the Substack in the Mystic Meditation section, but it has to do with embracing the sublime self. It's embracing oneself in all of one's facets. Potentially a lot of work in releasing any trauma built upon or based upon shame, right? Those moments or modalities that make us feel like less than who we are. Now, doing a lot of that work, it's not easy. And that's why I said that depending on how well how well you work on integration, like that either could potentially feel like a beautiful full moon. It can feel like an expansive full moon. Or, right, it could potentially bring up issues about recognizing that the inside doesn't feel like it's in accordance with the outside. Why are we potentially seeing this? Because, and when we were talking, it has a lot to do with the fact that we're entering a lot of Cancerian lessons. And I love, and I was just saying this before we started the podcast, how much I love Cancerian lessons, because they give us a perfect template on how to navigate the relationship between the higher self and the ego, right? There's often this misconception or this feeling, right? This desire to want to remove the ego entirely, but we can't do that, right? The ego, everything we're given is a gift, including the ego. The ego is our defense mechanism. It's what protects us. But sometimes, right, when the ego gets too big, then it protects us from things it doesn't need to protect us from. And this is why we observe that work, as it were, because when we're navigating those spaces and we're talking from that perspective, a good way to kind of look at the work that we want to do with our egos, like having an ego that feels like we're energetically proud of it. We can take a lot of lessons from the crab, right? Because the crab has a shell. It has a shell on the outside of it, but the shell is of the same material as the crab itself, right? They're interconnected, right? It matches the shape. It just forms the protective layer outside of the thing that exists within it. And when we're in a healthy space, this is what it feels like to have a healthy ego. It's one that's not too far from the shape of the higher self. It's just a little bit more rigid. It's just a little bit more rigid. But and so and that's why, when we have those moments of expansion, they can feel like the appreciation of how far one has come can be that moment when we feel that sense of sublimity of the divine self. It's feeling like we're embodying those aspects that we hope to bring out, right? Like having the energetic ego that we're proud of. But when we're too separate from the ego, right? When we feel like that separation point, it can feel very counter oppositional within us. This is why we often talk about the fact that in many spiritual journeys, you see like that cracking of the egoic self that often happens as one arrives to oneself, because it's the moment that you feel that the space that you exist within doesn't accommodate the space who you are, right? So I can keep on seeing, this is why I keep on seeing that a little bit of this energy right now can either feel fortifying or more energetically distressing. Because when we're working in that holistic place, right, it's the appreciation of the self. It's seeing that point of understanding and feeling the vibration of embracing what it takes to navigate that type of journey. But when things feel like they're too far apart, it can create like a lot of that feeling of tug of war. So we're seeing that there's a lot of that type of energy here. So I would not be surprised if you're saying that in some ways you feel like energetically fortified, but you're also feeling really, really frustrated, right? Because again, we talk about the fact that this work either can be read for being something that's happening internally within the self or externally as it relates to partnership. Now, this is why I see that there are a lot of new relationships that are coming together at this time. You'll recall that I was articulating that we're going through kind of the magician lessons right now with a lot of the relationships that are coming into relationality together. And that has to do with the authenticity, right? The authenticity that we bring forth into relationship that allows for the ability of having the authentic self as the priority. Now, why is it so important that we come to each other in a place of authenticity? Because when we're authentic, right, when we're energetically authentic with one another and we meet, right, our outside matches our inside. And this can often save us the distressing moment where we build into relationship. And then again, what happens in unhealthy relationship, right? It almost feels like when someone's ego moves away and we start to see the inner self, if there's too much separation between the egoic self and the higher self, it can feel like you don't know the person that you're experiencing there. You're like, who is this person? Like, where'd they come from? Because there's too much of a separation, right? That is why it's such a gift when we work to do that outside of partnership. And that's also why it's important that we let go and we surrender the illusion of rejection when we're operating in the space of our majesty. Because that's to say that, again, if I am someone who likes who I am, and I'm not articulating that I'm perfect, but I know where that work is, then I arrive in the space of meeting another in that space. And it gives us the opportunity, right, to be able to see if we're in energetic alignment. Now, if someone rejects you in that space, it hurts, right? It's painful. But at the same time, you don't take it too personally because you understand that, like, again, the responsibility that any of us have as it relates to the way we feel has to do, the only responsibility we have to do with the emotion that exists within us is confusion, because confusion can always be met with clarity. So that's why we see that for a lot of these relationships that we're starting to take form, that slowness, right? That hesitation, taking that time, doing that work. This is why a lot of that energy was reining back and pulling back on their emotions, because they were waiting to see through time if these are not just relationships where someone is articulating upon a manifestation, but is showing the ability to be able to embody it. And so we see even now that this is a lot of that fortitude that's coming through, right? This is a lot of that energy that is feeling the confidence that is arriving, that's allowing them to move deeper into partnership. Whereas for energy that's still in separation at this time, this is potentially the recognition point of something that you're carrying with you out of an unhealthy relationship that isn't true, but that you had to take in within the self in order to stay within an unhealthy relationship dynamic. This is often why we talk about the fact that trauma is so difficult, because we carry the trauma with us. And we see that a lot of the energy right now moving deeper into union, they're also doing a lot of that work in recognizing, right? Doing a lot of that Chiron, doing a lot of those Chiron lessons, seeing what they've carried forward in order to effectively continue to build into a lot of that reliability. Center card for today's spread, we have here our Eight of Swords in its reversal. This is a very Cancerian spread that we are seeing right now. Because for a lot of that energy, right, identifying and recognizing what that work is, I just keep on seeing these are conversations about, for a lot of these energies that are coming into divine union right now, or moving deeper into divine union, you'll recall I mentioned that these are those chariot partnerships that were forming between the time that Mars stationed direct up until the time that Mercury and Venus woke up behind Neptune a few weeks ago. The ability to find reliability, the ability to create that stability for one another allows one to move into the inner sanctum of the self, which again, what happens when you go into the inner sanctum of the self? You're able to move deeper into one's own authenticity. And so that ability of, again, becoming more energetically authentic, this is a lot of the energy that's understanding the rigor that is required in healthy partnership, because the same boundaries that one had to create in order to facilitate coming into union are the same that you have to work to remove as you move deeper into it. This is why we talk about the fact that healing is not linear. But this is why we see that the energy is doing that work, because when we are outside of partnership, we have standards. We have standards when we don't know if another person holds our standards. We would prefer not to have to hold our standards, right? It would be assumed or hoped that others hold our standards for us, but this is the world we live in. It's simply the matter that, again, identifying trust is effectively the discernment point in being able to build confidence with another person, to be able to recognize and identify whether they hold our standards. And often what's difficult is when another person doesn't hold our standards, they have to become boundaries. Right? Those are the boundaries that are formed. And now we have to hold rigid boundaries. So this is why we see that we often become very rigid where our standards are. But this is the same work we do in healthy partnership, because what happens in healthy partnership? We have the gift of another who holds our standards with the same dexterity by which we hold our own. And it's in that moment that another holds our standards. So it allows us to go into a deeper level of vulnerability, because in the ability to release the standards, it's not that the standards are going away. It is being able to do so with the security point of another who holds them as sacredly as we do. This brings us to a lot of the energy deep within divine union. And so this is like, I keep on hearing, this is the energy that is doing that hard work in working through. I keep on hearing this is the energy saying, I'm not releasing my standards, I'm entrusting another with them, right? it's like a lot of, like, that is why the work feels so perpetual, because it's always those moments that require that easement point, right? It's like I keep on hearing, it's like the trust fall into love is such of being held that allows you to move deeper further into it. Fourth and fifth cards in our 5-card spread. There's that Devil card in its reversal in combination with our 7 of Swords in its reversal. We're going to be studying that Devil card next month in our Tarot Church class program. If you care to join, all you need to do is become a member of my Substack. That'll be your ticket of entry. Now, for masculine and feminine energy deep within divine union, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what one feels most aligned to. What we're effectively recognizing and identifying that is occurring right now has to do with a lot of the adaptation of the manifestation goal. Why do we see that there are manifestation goals that are effectively adapting right now? Because when we're deep, like, again, one of the beautiful things that we see with a healthy manifestation is a manifestation is not gimme energy. It's not just getting things. It is the journey of being able to see more. So we're moving in accordance to a healthy manifestation. Often it is very characteristic of the fact that we see more possibilities as we move closer to it. That again, we see the manifestation that matures at the same time as we ourselves do. So I keep on hearing that this is a lot of the energy whose manifestations, they're not, again, much like the energy coming into divine union, this is the energy that's not getting rid of their standards. They're learning the ability to trust another to hold them for them. We see that a lot of the energy right now deep within divine union is doing that work and recognizing and identifying that path work of healing, wherein they see the fact that the manifestation is changing, but it doesn't mean that they're departing away from the manifestation. It's that the manifestation itself is evolving and growing. Continuing to get clarification between our Page of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Two of Pentacles in its upright. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Swords in its reversal. So for a lot of this energy that we're seeing, I mean, this is what I mean about this, the Cancer energy being like somewhat bittersweet, if you will, because for a lot of the work that we see, when we're entering a lot of like Cancerian lessons, it's working on, I keep on, and this is the thing, this is, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a warning. You know, we've got Uranus that is transiting. Uranus is transiting, let me just check. We've got Uranus transiting in about, yeah, it's going to be transiting in like the next like month or so, but I feel like we're already going to start to feel this to a certain extent. Because the thing is with the thing with Uranus that we have to talk about is it's often working into the context of how we deal with frustration. You know, it's and I keep on saying it's like it's the frustration, and I feel like a lot of the things that we're going to see right now is finding ways, like creative ways to deal with frustration is the best way I can describe it. It's creative ways to deal with frustration. And we were talking about this heavily yesterday. Why were we talking about this heavily yesterday? Because, you know, one of the things that we identify has to do with the fact that everything is a gift, even frustration. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you have to understand that when we experience things that frustrate us, right, the frustration we feel can often be indicative of the things that we care about, right? And when we are moving frustration in ways that feel profound, in ways that feel that they fortify us, right? It allows us to have that ability of doing so that feels like it's energetically productive. I'm saying this right now because given the fact that we've got a bunch of energy, we've got Mercury and Jupiter that are now in Cancer. We've got Uranus that is starting to migrate into Gemini. I'm going to just keep on saying this. I don't like this is not a manifestation goal. Okay? I don't like this is not a manifestation goal, right? Because often, and this is something that we often have to recognize and identify and work through when we're going through Gemini lessons, a lot of the work that Gemini comes here to do is to understand how to work in the context of change. But often a lot of the difficulty points that those with Gemini placements have, and we talked a lot about this in the temperance class that we had, is working through the paradox of choice, right? When there's all choices around us, it can almost create as much of a blocker as having no choice, right? It can sometimes create that like analysis paralysis, if you will. So if you're feeling like that right now, that's why I feel like, again, if you're having those moments where you're feeling energetically exhaustive, but you're going through something in such a way that it's like it feels like there's too many options around something, I want you to, again, take a lesson from Cancer, which says don't look for manifestations outside the self, look for the path work within, right? Because it's working through the context of not allowing the self to be energetically distracted, right? It's working through the context of being able to stay focused. And it can feel like, I remember what I said. Like, we just came out of what I described as like multi-ball energy. Remember what I was saying? It was like there were so many planets in Gemini. It felt like there were a million things happening at once. So even now, I'm just seeing like that ability of being able to feel that sense of productivity. Let it, I keep on hearing like, let it create a renaissance instead of feeling energetically resigned, right? Because like a lot of that work that we're seeing here is it has to do with allowing oneself to take the frustration that you're feeling and move it into constructive spaces. So again, articulating upon not just the problem, but upon the solution. Being able to recognize and identify, like I keep the message that was coming through heavily yesterday is like, what would you prefer? What would be energetically better, right? Articulating upon that easement point that allows for that expansion. And I keep on seeing that a lot of that, this is why I keep on seeing that there's a lot of relationships that are potentially coming together under these circumstances. There's also potentially going to be some relationships that are coming apart for these same reasons. But even in the space, and I want to describe this, and what I'm seeing in some of these relationships that are separate, that potentially are separating right now, right? The identification point of what I'm potentially seeing is occurring has to do with the navigation of the difference between the articulation of a manifestation versus the embodiment of it, right? Like that ability of being able to come into a place of authenticity. Now, and I think that even there's something very energetically cathartic that's happening. Continuing to get clarification between our Two of Pentacles in combination with our Eight of Swords in its reversal. Can I get one card to clarify? Yeah, we've got that Nine of Cups in its reversal. So the thing with the Nine of Cups in its reversal is, and this is what I keep on seeing, has to do with navigating through frustration. And remember what I said the other day. I remember how I was articulating, especially as we move towards that Sagittarius full moon, to make sure that you are communicating through frustration in positive ways, making sure that you are being solution focused instead of problem oriented, because that ability of articulating and stating, like I keep on seeing, like, I don't like this is not a manifestation goal, but being able to talk about what one hopes to change, right? This is why we see that for a lot of the energy that was in separation, there was so much hesitancy of coming back into union. Why was this energy so hesitant to come into union? There's a lot of trust wounds here, right? And where did these trust wounds potentially occur? From situations or circumstances. And I keep on hearing this is why it's important that we move towards our authenticity. Because it's one thing to articulate a manifestation goal. It's another thing to be able to embody it, right? A healthy manifestation is not gimme energy. It's help me see. Help to recognize the work that we're trying to do, help to identify what we're trying to change in ourselves, right? We walk towards the manifestation in order to arrive to it. There's no waiting in a manifestation. Similarly, in healthy relationship, we do the same work, right? We identify and recognize progress that is met via what we change within ourselves, right? Like Gemini teaches us that relationships are not places that we go to stagnate. They're not places that we go to become to stay still. They transform, like we transform in the space of relationship. But when we're in a healthy relationship, that's the transformation that feels like the flourishing, the ability to see oneself with more clarity, the ability to excel, if you will. We talked a lot about excellence in that temperance class that we just taught. but the ability to excel to the highest self via the relationship that doesn't do it for you, right? But again, helps you see the higher self in such a way that allows you to feel that uplift, right? Allows you to see the determination point with more clarity, that positive reinforcement that we find in healthy harmony. Whereas unhealthy relationship can often feel the opposite. It can feel like energy. We start to change in ways that we don't aspire or desire to change. It feels like a contortion of the self. We start to feel like we lose ourselves in partnership. We hardly recognize ourselves. But again, when we're in a healthy relationship, we love, it's never about recognition. It's about the determination point of what you feel that you are becoming. So that ability of doing so, that expansion point, this is why I see that a lot of these relationships are finding the confidence to finally start moving towards one another in a more determined way. It's giving a little bit of like a pardon our appearance kind of vibration. Why are we getting a little bit of this like pardon our appearance kind of vibration? Because this is the energy that is being conscientious for due to experiences wherein they potentially entered relationship where it felt at first blush like that was what was happening. But then what happened? Something changed. Why did something change? Because when we're not in our authenticity, what we articulate, we aspire for is different than what we find within, right? And so that's why we see that for a lot of the energy, that feeling of stability, right? The trust that is taking shape in not only experiencing someone in their authenticity, but coming to know them in a more deep fashion and seeing that even more of that is pervasive the deeper that one moves within the journey of discovering another. This is the energy that, again, feels that expansion point because they're starting to feel the easement of identifying and recognizing relationship or individuals that it's not just what they say, it's who they energetically are, right? Welcome to that. Welcome to Mercury, Jupiter and Mercury, right? Jupiter and Mercury entering Cancer, right? Jupiter and Mercury entering Cancer together is the relief of the outside that matches the inside. It's like, woohoo, it's like, yay. So we see a lot of that is potentially happening there. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, we just see that for a lot of the energy coming into, we got a card. We've already got the card. Is this transverse? Okay, it's a transverse card we've got coming through for the next card. For a lot of the energy coming into divine union, clarification between our Three of Swords and its reversal in combination with the Devil card and its reversal, which two cards I like very much to see together. We've got our Emperor in its transverse. But we like, and here's the thing about it, we like an Emperor, like the Emperor in its transverse is beautiful energy insofar as the recognition point of how it feels often to embody a healthy journey, which is it often feels like you're moving towards your vulnerability, right? And we're going to talk a minute about this because what do we see that's happening for a lot of the energy that's moving deeper into divine union right now? They're understanding the difference. They're feeling the difference between weakness and vulnerability. What is weakness? Weakness is the quality and characteristic of being weak. You can't choose. There's no choice in being weak. If you're weak, you're weak, right? It's like, it's like, lift it. I can't lift it. Like, it's weak, right? Vulnerable takes a lot of work because you have to understand, vulnerable is the quality and characteristic of being strong, right? Being strong, being able to do something and choosing not to do it, right? It is moving into the space of allowing oneself to be weak. And this is often why we talk about the fact of a healing journey not being linear. Because it's a frustrating situation, but yet these are the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Often when we have to enter healthy relationship, when we have to find our peace, what does it take to find our peace? It takes a lot. It takes a lot of work to set those to set those healthy boundaries. It takes a lot of that work in relationality to holding those energetic standards, right? Often in those moments, like having to build into that. And when we finally find the relationship, when we finally find our energetic peace, right? The same work that we had to do in order to facilitate discovering it is the same work we then have to do in order to release all of that energetic strength, to build deeper into the heart of a healthy, intimate connection where we can allow ourselves the inner child healing. And how does that happen? Do you lower your standards? No. It's not lowering your standards if another person is holding your standards for you, right? It is the ability to go deeper into healing when another is holding the sanctuary of the self for the self, honoring the standards. Welcome to Mars in Leo. So we see even now that that's a lot of that energy that's doing what? Learning how to put the weapons of the self down. Continuing to get clarification between our Devil card in its reversal and our Seven of Wands in its reversal. There's that Chariot card in its reversal. So a lot of this work that we're seeing with the Chariot card in its reversal has to do, I just keep on identifying, it has to do a lot with and this is what I meant with the energy deep within divine union right now that is moving into Wheel of Fortune energy, because this is a lot of the energy. It's not that they're moving away from their manifestations. It's the identification of the celebration moment that we experience, wherein one of the signs of moving towards a healthy manifestation is that the manifestation changes as you move closer towards it. It's the energy that transforms, because a healthy manifestation is something that helps us see more. And when we see more, we open our possibilities. It doesn't mean that we change. It doesn't mean that we reverse course. It means that we broaden the manifestation. So I keep on seeing that there's a lot of the energy that is broadening their manifestation because they feel like they had blinders on before. They're going, the blinders are off. And this is often what we mean in relationality, to be able to change something, because often, and we experience this like even in like the space of maturation, right? It's that moment of seeing something and being like understanding like what's for us that continually perpetually moves ahead of us, because it is the nature, like it is the nature of the like it's the horizon point on the journey, as it were, that continues to arrive to us as we move closer towards it. So I keep on hearing there's like something very beautiful that's happening for a lot of those energies deep within divine union as it relates to maturation. Continuing to get clarification between our double nine energy here. I like this actually, yeah, we got double nine energy. I like the double nine energy we have on the table, because we've got the Nine of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Nine of Cups in its reversal. Can I please have one card to clarify? We've got our Fool card. Beautiful stuff. And this is what I meant as it relates to working in the context of identifying and recognizing what, like, you remember how I said, like, this is the trust that is coming together right now for a lot of these relationships, a lot of these new partnerships, that excitement point, like that ability to identify and see. Why do we see a lot of these relationships are finally building into trust? Because if you recall, we mentioned that for a lot of these relationships, that desire to come into authentic connection was such that it was the prioritization point that was bringing them together. And they're already healing each other via the auric contradictions. What are auric contradictions? The ability to get to know another to such an extent that one says something, like one says something about the self that isn't true, right? Something that one, like an unhealthy pattern of thought, right? Something that feels like it's not in the space of another's excellent. And this is and this is why, like, they're showing each other's excellence, right? They're articulating upon what they see in one another, right? And they're clarifying to each other what that excellence is. But and this is the thing about it. If these are relationships where another person is talking negatively about themselves, they're almost looking at it and being like, "Where did you pick that up? Where did you hear that? Who told you that?" Because this is often what happens in unhealthy relationship dynamics, that one of two different things is happening for a lot of these new partnerships. That is either the moment or modality wherein when another says something that you're saying about the self that you hold yourself accountable for, and another person says, "I don't see that within you," which is indicative of how far you've come in relationality to how much you've healed. Or these are relationships or situations where another recognizes that they had to they had to ingest, as it were, an unhealthy thought form, something that they had to swallow about themselves that was not true, in order to stay within a relationship dynamic that was not best for them, right? Because sometimes, like often those modalities, we recognize that this is what's so difficult about trauma, that trauma sometimes puts us in spaces and places where we start to believe things about ourselves that are not true, because only by believing something about ourselves that is not true are we able to facilitate into a connection. Because at least if something is untrue about us and we're working to fix it, it is something that's within us to change, instead of being able to recognize the nature of a circumstance that would require us to move away from it. So that's why I keep on seeing that this is a modality that feels somewhat bittersweet, because there's a lot of this energy that is moving towards partnership. And how are they moving towards partnership? They're arriving to their own excellence. They're discovering their own excellence along the way. Continuing to get clarification between our Nine of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Emperor card in its transverse. We've got here our Sun card in its reversal. So this may look familiar. If this card looks familiar, we drew it yesterday in a very similar position. And we like to base upon evidence-backed points here. So whenever we see cards that are coming up very much in similar positions than when we saw them yesterday, it is often an indication that we're continuing forward on the same lesson. So we've got here, this is a carryover from yesterday's reading, because this card was over one position before this one. We have the Sun card. So why do we see, so for a lot of that directionality right now with the Sun being in its reversal, I feel like a lot of this right now is like, it feels very much in preparation for the energy moving into Cancer. Now, I need to point this out because this is often a misconception that I feel that others have with sign work, and how, as someone who reads the astrology energetically, like changing sign work is not like a switch that gets hit. You know what I mean? It's not like, boom, okay, it's not like a tabulation. There's a progress, right? And so one of the things that's happening right now is with Mercury and Jupiter arriving into Cancer season, like Cancer, before we've even worked into Cancer season, it feels, it's like, it's feeling very Cancerian in here, which means it's almost creating, like, we've got a little bit of this, like, I want to describe it as, it's almost like the Gemini and the Cancer energy is merging up right now, right? And so I think that that's positive, because I would not be surprised if there's a lot of conversation occurring as it relates to change, right? As it relates to the nature of change, as it relates to the ability to be energetically adaptable. But what is beautiful about that is I keep on hearing constructive change, right? Constructive change. And this was coming through yesterday. No boo, all do, which is like, What does that mean? Because like when you boo, right? When you boo, it's just like it's like the articulation of not liking something. There's not much you can do like about when you around a boo, but a do, right? Do is moving into the amplification of what it is that you can change, right? It's allowing oneself to be energetically productive. And that's what I effectively see that's happening right now. When I talked about a little bit of that like segmentation that's happening, I could even see some like arguments that are taking shape right now. I keep on hearing arguments that are taking shape right now between boo and do. That's what I keep on hearing. And why are we hearing arguments about boo and do? Because boo, like boo is working through the space of just of expressing irritation, right? Boo is just the space of articulating upon something that makes one energetically frustrated. But it's not helpful. You have to understand, boo is not helpful for the purpose of healthy communication, right? Because nothing gets fixed in the space of boo, right? But doing things fixes things, right? So I keep on seeing that there could be like a lot of argumentation that's happening right now as it relates to working through difficulties or working through energetic hurdles. Now, for energy in separation, like coming into union, this is why this feels like I keep on seeing like there's a lot of energy that's going into inner child healing, because you can't heal inner child wounds unless you feel safe enough to do so. You can't heal inner child wounds unless another person is holding your energetic standards for the self. And this is why we see that for a lot of the energy right now, that the level of nurture that they're experiencing in healthy relationship as it relates to stability, it's the nurture of the stable ground. It allows you to uncover things that you didn't know you had to work on, is what I keep on hearing. It's like it's giving one, it's like the peace, it's like the level of peace that arrives that helps you see things that you couldn't see before. And that's why I keep on hearing it's enlightening, it's positive, but it also is a little bit devastating, right? Because, I feel like for a lot of the energy, like I keep on hearing, it's like, ooh, new trauma unlocked. Like new trauma unlocked. Oh, that's great. I didn't even know I was carrying that. It's like a lot of that type of stuff. But this is why we talk about the fact that a healing journey isn't linear. Because sometimes we don't realize how much we're carrying until it's safe enough to be able to feel it. You got to feel it in order to heal it. And this is why often the body makes us go numb when we're in trauma environments, because the body's like, not now. Like, not now. But that's why I feel like there is, and this is why I would not be surprised if there's some energy right now feeling this. I mean, it's not out yet. I'm sure they might make an appearance. It's feeling a little hermity in here. Okay, it feels a little bit like hermit mode, but this is because we often see this type of energy when we got a lot of cancer stuff happening, because cancer is all about it's all about hermit mode. But this is why I'm also stressing. This is why I'm also stressing right now that I want to make sure that you're utilizing your frustration in productive ways, because this is the only thing that makes me a little bit anxious. Okay, the thing is, Sagittarians, and Cancers are some of the hardest signs as it relates to navigating discomfort or frustration, because Cancerians have a tendency of when Cancers don't feel safe, what do? They close their shutters. They go boop. They're like, I'm out of here. Like they just close up. Sagittarians will run. They'll be like, you want to see how fast I can run? Like they're just like boom. They're out they're you turn around and they're like down the street like 50 blocks. Okay, this is the thing, and they have the same thing. There's like it's like they got like, and Cancers and Sages often have to work through this that hair trigger when it comes to navigating the nope. Okay, it's like The hair trigger on a Cancerian and a Sagittarian's nope is profound. And often those with Sagittarian placements and Cancerian placements have to work through this, right? It's working through the trigger of following like the you know, like the closing up or the getting out of here kind of energy, right? It's working into the, and this is why, and we were talking about, this was coming through. This is often what's difficult that Cancers and Sages sometimes need to learn on their journeys. If you stick around in a point of uncomfortability and you don't take it personally, what do you get? You get the gift of clarity, right? You get the ability sometimes, that first blush, right? Like when if we rush through our first blush, we never get the opportunity of another person to be able to finish their sentence, is what I keep on hearing, right? It's like I keep on hearing, if we rush from the first blush, right, which is like the minute we feel uncomfortable, like the blush, we lose the gift of clarity, right? Because sometimes, like, we're too much in our feels to be able to hear something that might be something that is helpful for us, right? So I feel like there's like a lot there's a lot of that work that we're potentially doing right now as it relates to working through like an uncomfortable conversation, or working through something that feels like, you know, like a little bit like, you know, like something that, like, again, Uranus moving into Gemini, which is like working through something in a way, but trying to find like perseverance is what I keep on hearing. Continuing to get clarification between our Emperor card. And that's why I would not be surprised right now if there's energy that's coming into divine union that is having conversations about their triggers. Because one of the things we also see is healthy relationship isn't about being perfect. It's about knowing how one is. And by knowing how one is, we heal each other by telling another person what they need to help us through those moments that we feel energetically triggered. Continuing to get clarification between our Emperor in its transverse and our Chariot card in its reversal. Well, my goodness, we've got here our 10 of Wands in its reversal. So for a lot of the energy right now, something, it feels a lot, I'm not surprised to see this too, which is working through efficiencies. Trying to figure out easier ways of doing things, trying to think of more productive ways of utilizing time. And I'm not surprised to see this either, because the thing is, I keep on describing that with Aries, with Saturn moving into Aries, it's almost akin to all of us having a bit of a Saturn return together, because Aries comes here to heal their relationship to time. And the thing is, Aries and Gemini have a tendency of saying the same thing. What do Aries and Gemini say together? I don't have time for this. Why do Aries and Gemini always say I don't have time for this? Because Aries has a little tiny bit of patience, okay? A little tiny bit of patience that they need to see progress with, right? Aries knows that the little tiny kernel of patience that they have, when they have progress, it grows. Gemini are always thinking about the 4 other things they could be doing instead of the thing that they're doing. So I keep on seeing that there's potentially, for a lot of the energy right now, the ability to talk towards efficiency, potentially changing manifestation plans to figure out more efficient ways of doing things, right? I just keep on seeing that there's something about that feels almost like a release or a relief, because it's a lot of the energy working in the context of trying to find something that feels like it allows them to have some kind of time back, is what I keep on hearing. I'm not surprised, given the fact that Saturn just moved into Aries. Continuing to get clarification between our Fool card and our Sun card in its reversal. Boom. 6 of Pentacles in its reversal. You know, the thing with, I keep on seeing with a lot of this energy that's building into connection, I got to stress this. I feel like there's a lot of relief coming into some of these partnerships. Why is there relief coming into these partnerships? Because, and you remember, I almost keep on hearing this energy apologizing to each other. I keep on hearing them almost say like apologizing, but saying, I had to be sure. I had to be sure. Why is the energy saying I had to be sure? Because this is the energy that understands, right? They understand the difficulty in the fact that when we build into relationship with another, right? Like authenticity, and I keep on saying authenticity and operating in one's majesty. This is the work we come to learn, right? What is being energetically fickle? And this is we get hurt a lot. Like we get hurt a lot by others' fickleness. Changing for change's sake is not a manifestation goal. But those that don't have the determination point in order to move towards a manifestation will often appear as fickle, because as they move towards something, they get tired of what it takes to get there, and then they move away from it, right? And so that's why we talk about, for those with a lot of Gemini placements, like learning the difference between pragmatism and fickleness is recognizing that change for change's sake is not a manifestation goal, but it often is indicative of a lack of an ability to persevere in what it takes to reach a manifestation goal, right? This is often something that we have to create within ourselves, right? This is the ability, this is what we find at the heart of commitment, right? It's a difference between saying, I don't just want something, but I enjoy embodying what it energetically takes to move in the direction of it, right? It's a lot of that. It's like, it's working in service to the manifestation, right? The manifestation isn't just about receiving something. It's understanding how we change as we move as we discover ourselves, as we move towards it. And that's why we hear even now, sometimes it's perfectly reasonable that we often have those moments in life where we change our manifestations. It's happened to all of us. We've all had those moments. We start to move towards something and we go, yeah, this is not what I thought. It's not what I thought it would be. It's the feeling, right? It's the understanding of the center of self that either is the discovery that feels like the celebration, or the moment that we move away from something. But that's why it's really important. Like, it's really important to our relationships that we have it with, that we're very well seated in the self when we move into partnership. Because when we are well seated in the self, when we move towards partnership, then we are able to identify and recognize it's not just the fact that we say that we desire partnership, but we also know what it takes to be, we also know what it feels like to be in one. We also we know what it takes to create one. We know what it takes. We know what it takes in that journey day to day, right? It's not just the pipe dream of what you think the manifestation is. It is the delight in the experience of being in it, which is often far more messy than it looks on the outside. Now, for a lot of the energy doing that work, that is why we see that so many of these partnerships are starting to build trust with one another. They're starting to, I keep on seeing, they're starting to release their energetic inhibitions. Why are they releasing their inhibitions? Because they're healing from situations or circumstances wherein someone potentially articulated about the fact that they wanted a manifestation, but either one of two different things happened as they entered the relationship. Either one, someone said that they wanted a relationship, but they didn't embody the qualities and characteristics of one that can keep one down. Like, you can hold one down, Be like, I would like a pony. Do you have a stable? Nope. You ever ridden before? Nope. versus, or, right? Or you care to learn? Nope. Or those modalities or circumstances or situations. And this is what I see as even more difficult, wherein another person articulated that there was a person that they were, right? and then, or that they appreciated another. And then once they entered the relationship, there started to become a change to such an extent that it felt like the self that was reflected upon entry into the relationship felt like it was dramatically shed in some way that can feel energetically debilitating. And this is what we mean about the importance and significance of having the work that we do on the egoic self so that it feels like it's in service to the higher self. Because when we're in healthy space, the inside matches the outside. What we articulate to others in the space of our ego is very much similar to what we find within. And that allows us the healthier relationship, because when someone comes to get to know us, they're like, oh, there's just more of this. As far as I go, just more of this, right? There's just more of this. And that's a delight. It's a celebration. But when we're not in a healthy space and our egoic self does not match the internal, we go, who the heck is this person? Right? Like, who is this person? Continuing to get clarification between our Sun card in its reversal in combination with our 10 of Wands in its reversal. Can I please get one card to clarify, please? And this is important because this is why I see, do you see how hard this work is for the energy coming into divine union? The hardest thing we do when we enter partnership is become vulnerable, right? Because the more vulnerable we come, and this is why we become each other's exceptions to the rules. An exception, and you have to understand, when we're in a space of being in a healthy egoic journey, exception does not mean different. It doesn't mean a whole different list of rules for another person. It means we excel in the space of trust. That's why exception and excel have the same root meaning. Because when we truly care about someone, we don't lower our standards. We build into the space of being able to find our inner child with the security and stability of one who holds them as well as we would our own. That creates the inner sanctum in which we can excel into the lesson of the inner child, because we're able to do that work to recognize and embody the vulnerable part of ourselves that allows us to become more open in relationality to being able to articulate and heal from the traumas that we may have been carrying for a very long time. Continuing to get clarification for a lot of the energy deep within divine union. This is why we see, like, I feel like there's a little bit of this like adaptability that's happening right now, because I keep on hearing the manifestation, right? Welcome to Cancer season. What's happening to the manifestation? The dream that they had, it's too tight. It doesn't fit anymore, right? Because often when we grow, right, we often feel that what happens when we feel like we've grown? It was dreaming too small. Right? This is why the manifestation grows, because as we grow, as we evolve, we see more, right? And we start to feel like we're growing out of our old version of self. And often we articulate, it's not the fact that we abandon the dream, but we say, oh, that dream I had, it was a little too tiny. I got to make it a little bit bigger, right? So we grow the dream. Continuing. Final card for today's spread between our 6 of Cups, Pentacles in its reversal, and our 7 of Wands in its upright. 6 of Cups in its reversal. So we're going to talk about this right now. The 6 of Cups in its reversal. 6 of Cups in its reversal. You know, here's the thing about it. I want to tell you, I'm just going to say this. It's a little cranky in here. Okay. It's a little cranky. Why is it cranky? No offense to those with Cancer placements, because you know this about yourself. But the thing, you know, the thing, you know, and I know Cancers know what I'm saying. How do you feel? Every Cancer here, you know, like, this is why we make jokes that Cancers, like, nothing makes Cancers happier than when plans get canceled, right? I don't like it here. I don't like it here. You know, it has to do, right? It's sometimes, you know, the thing with the thing we often have to work through with Cancer energy is, you know, things can just wear on you a little bit more you know? And it's like, and the thing whenever we got a lot of Cancer energy, there's always that little voice that goes, we could just leave. We could just leave. Like, we just, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot of that working into the context of identifying and recognizing, like, working through that frustration, right? Identifying and doing that work. But that's why I keep on seeing that a lot of the space that we do in relationality to that. That's why I kept on saying, make sure that the conversations that you're having right now are solution focused, not problem oriented, right? Talking towards what feels like it is healthy or energetically beneficial in such a way that like in such a way that we can find a way to, like, work through what is bothering us. And that's what I meant about something about that being, like, in the space of, I kept on hearing, I would not be surprised if some of these argumentation points that are happening right now, I keep on hearing, between, like, boo and do, which is like the space of articulating upon something that's bothering, right? Versus what feels like it's energetically productive. And this is why there's sometimes often like a breakaway between boo and do, because when you're constantly articulating upon what's wrong, you're not focusing on what's right. Right. And that doesn't mean, right, it's the identification point that the reason we talk through frustration is in order to identify and recognize solutions. And what I keep on seeing that may potentially be happening right now, and this is often something this is what I meant, that there may be some separations that are occurring at this time as well, has to do in relationality to a unified manifestation goal. Now, I just want to, I'm going to bring this up, and I feel like every single time we hit Cancer season, this starts coming up, and we're getting close. The difference between a conflict and an argument, okay? An argument is energy that desires the same manifestation goal. They got just different ways to get there, right? You and another person, you want the same thing, and you're arguing about directions. Take a left. No, take a right. No, we're going to go this way. No, we're going to go around the thing, right? It's the argumentation point on how you're going to get there. That's an argument. And this is why we often describe arguments as productive, because we typically find a happy medium, right? It's the understanding that you can always reaffirm the connection point by being able to identify where it is that one is trying to move towards. A conflict can often sometimes create closing points in relationships, because it is the identification point of two energies that want vastly different things, right? It is the recognition, it is the conflict that does not feel like you're trying to move in the same direction, but the argumentation point between something that starts to feel like a tug of war, right? So I keep on seeing, right? And that's why, like, it's like I see the tug of war and I feel like boxing gloves come on, because it's the moment that I keep on hearing, like, the healthy relationship is not one that feels like we should have to argue for manifestation goals, is all I keep on hearing. And can be very devastating, because sometimes when we care about someone, and this is why it's so important to make sure that we have the same manifestation goals before we enter a relationship, because nothing is worse than when you build an energetic, emotional connection with someone only to suddenly realize that they're headed in a completely different direction than you are, right? This can create a lot of that frustration. It can create a lot of those moments, even sometimes moments of energetic betrayal. This is why we have to be articulate and clear in relationality to what it is that we're energetically seeking. A healthy manifestation goal is one that is mutually shared. It's not one that we feel like we circumvent someone in the relationship in order to move in accordance to it. So that's why we keep on seeing that conversation, working in that space, articulating and defining what that is. Like, I keep on seeing, this is why these are a lot of the relationships that are almost apologizing to each other, these magician partnerships, even as they're forming, because the energy is saying, it's not that I didn't believe you, I've just been hurt before. And this is what we mean when we say it's not that I didn't believe you, I've been hurt before, because it is the identification point that sometimes that is intentional. And sometimes it is non-intentional. And that's why we see that this is the energy that as they move towards each other, what do they say? I'm sorry I ever doubted you. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. It's like the energy that is now rushing to each other because they're saying like it's like the apology, but it's like but they're mutually feeling this way. I just want to point that out. Now, for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is the energy that's recognizing that healing from trauma, it never stops. It's the work of a lifetime. Trauma doesn't go away. This is why trauma doesn't go away. Because when we build into healthy connection, we excel in relationship. It's the exception to the rule. The ability to move deeper into healing is one that is articulated with an energetic partner that holds our energetic standards as we would our own. And this is why we build into, when we say that our relationships or our partners are our exceptions, we don't mean that we become a completely different person for them. Okay, it doesn't mean like, nah, like who is that? No, it means that we build into a deeper level of trust, because it is the honor when we see someone that feels that it is an honor to hold our standards for us. It allows us to do the work in being able to resolve a lot of the trauma that we carry that we couldn't before because we didn't feel energetically safe enough to do so. So I just keep on seeing, I'm not surprised to see this right now. We've got Pluto in retrograde, being able to do a lot of that, like lifting the rock, finding out what's underneath there, like doing a lot of that, like energetic clearing in the space of identifying not just not just the relationship itself, but what it took to be able to find it. And that's the energy that almost forgives themselves in the process. Because again, trauma requires you to again, like this is why we talk about the fact that that healing isn't linear, because if we're in an unhealthy space, sometimes we have to start imbibing things about ourselves that is not true, right? We have to become something that isn't in accordance to us in order to survive it. So this is the energy that's starting to heal by forgiving themselves for those moments or modalities that feels like they departed from themselves as they continue to move closer to refining themselves, refining the self, which is the refining of the self. While for masculine and feminine energy that is deep within divine union, this is a lot of that. There's a lot of energy here that I think it's really beautiful, because it's saying, like, it's interesting because this is the energy that has the energetic changes that are happening to their manifestation, because it's almost the energy saying, look how much the manifestation grows. Like the manifestation is not a child anymore, right? Like often this is what we talk about with a manifestation. A manifestation matures as we mature. This is often why, as we continue in healthy relationship, the dreams are replaced with new dreams, because as we continue through, right, the things that we hold on to, it's like the preciousness, it's like the importance of things that constantly alterates and changes, but it feels like an energetic blessing. Bottom of the deck on today's reading, especially with the Knight of Swords in its reversal, this is why it's really important not to be too much in your ego on your journey. Because often, what is the sign that we have in a healthy manifestation? I was thinking too small, right? Healthy manifestations are not gimme energy. It's helping me see. It's helping all of us see. It's the ability to see something deeper. But this is often, and we often see this in some kind of energetic relationships as it relates to time, right? When we're not in a space of working sacredly, we often reach for things. And in the reaching for things, we damage the relationships around us in the process, right? This is often why we have these calibration moments of holding spaces of regret in relationality to articulating and defining what it is that we hold. Like I keep on hearing, we don't get moments back, right? And so I keep on seeing that often what happens in those modalities, right, when we're not able to, like when we look at, and this is why I was telling you, like this is what's happening right now with Saturn moving into Aries, right? It's working on the preciousness of moments, right? because those moments that become energetically precious, it's the articulation of the respect to time. And what's beautiful is for the energy and separation, this is why there's no greater violation in feeling like when another person articulates a manifestation that isn't in authenticity to the self, because it feels like another person wastes our time, right? This is often why, like, that ability of doing so creates that robustness in terms of articulating the preciousness of it. Because I keep on seeing that ability, like, this is the energy that also understands that we do so. I keep on hearing we do so together or not at all. Because often when we don't do something together, it feels like when we don't do something together, it feels like we energetically drift apart. And it's in that, and I keep on saying, like, that ability of doing so is one that we articulate that ability, like how, like, it's very much that same feeling about, like, what happens to one of us happens to all of us, but also in the context of understanding that we identify and recognize and work into the space that allows for that ability of saying that a healthy manifestation should not be one that creates exception. Okay, like a healthy manifestation is one that can be mutually shared, right? And then, like, that's the message that just keeps on coming through again and again. A healthy manifestation is one that is mutually shared. It's one that should be celebrated, one that we all move to together. And often we can tell, like, a good calibration point, you can tell as to whether a manifestation you have is in a good space or in a not great space. I keep on hearing, care of the self is not selfish if it's mutually shared. If the care that you're willing to give yourself is something that you would give to another person, that is not selfish, because it is a generous gift, a desire within the self that one aspires to move towards. If it's something that you want for others around you, that is also a good one, right? Because it's something that is energetically shared. It is the expansion point of the dream that allows for the creation and the ability of it to be shared amongst others, right? So this is what we talk about as it relates to wishes, the wishes that can be multiplied, that allow for the calibration point of others to be able to experience them as well. So I want you to think about that a lot right now as you're navigating through any kind of difficulties, right? Working toward, and that's why I said even now, like, working through problems, but building into energetic solutions, that ability of recognizing and articulating upon something in such a way that allows for the ability of another, be it the counterpart, to recognize and understand, like, where you're energetically coming from. And this is the beauty of, again, building in a healthy space, because often when we're not sure about ourselves, we have that counterpart that helps us check, right? It's like that check energy. Am I missing something? Like that ability of being able to identify and recognize. And I keep on seeing this is a lot of energy that's also healing from some very deep trauma in the process. So make sure, I keep on hearing, I don't like this is not a manifestation goal. And make sure that you're articulating in a way that feels energetically productive. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my site. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The couple of updates before we move into personals today. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who attended our recent class on the Temperance card earlier this week. If you missed that class, it is now available to anyone who is a paid subscriber to my Substack. You just need to head over there and become a paid subscriber, and you'll have access to over 9 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library Archive. If you become a founding member, you'll have access to over 15 hours worth of material in an ever-expanding library. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything we've learned or studied thus far. And if you become a founding member, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, you will also receive a complimentary one. You also have full access to the entirety of the Tarot Church Library Archive. That is access to over 15 hours worth of material in an ever-expanding library. You will also have access to a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, wherein I will meet with you personally to assess where you are on your personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage, moving towards your personal tarot goals moving forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us in these classes. And even if you don't become a founding member to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there, where you can stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my in-person events as well as my online live schedule. You'll also be notified. You'll also have my access to my Mystic Meditation articles, which give you updates on what to expect energetically as we move through the different lunar transitions. I just wrote one about this recent full moon in Sagittarius, if you'd like to head over there and read that. I also want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for any of my clients that are seeking a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, as those classes are focused on each individual's personal spiritual goals and journey work. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, weekly or bi-weekly, as your schedule permits. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I'm also very happy to now offer dream interpretation readings. You can purchase these on per dream or as a series. I would encourage, if you purchase a series, that you start to keep a dream journal, as we will meet weekly or bi-weekly with that journal and utilize the tarot to understand the key themes and messages coming towards you in the dream space. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.